Hi, welcome to another episode of the Kikazim Experience. On today's episode, we are going to go back to our first ever destination wedding. I met the bride about a year and a half ago, before the COVID pandemic hit. And she said she wanted a really big cake. And so we talked through the process. Bride and the groom are actually from Liberia. And so they came to the studio for us to go through the process, the design process. So we designed an 8-tier cake, tier by tier, with details that the bride wanted. And we set out on working to produce what arguably is our biggest or tallest cake yet. It stood at 11 feet. That's about 3.34 meters tall. A lot of the components of this cake had to be imported because it was a custom design, and because it wasn't based on, like, it wasn't a replica of any cake that was out there. The bride and I sat down and we brainstormed on ideas and designed the cake tier by tier. And so the elements of every tier either had to be made or by ourselves, or we had to custom order. And so we were getting ready for the wedding. That was initially supposed to be in March of last year. And then COVID hit and they decided to postpone the wedding to this year. And so this year we had everything in place. But it was still a race against time because we have, as usual, it's not a situation where we can shut production down and focus on one cake, because we have ongoing commitments to a lot of clients who order their cakes sometimes months and weeks in advance. And so we can't say that because we're working on this big wedding cake, we're shutting down and focusing all our attention on that cake. And so often we have to juggle working on bigger projects alongside working, fulfilling our, our smaller celebration cake commissions. But anyway, one of the biggest challenges that we had, and one of the key components of the design, was the balcony. We designed a balcony. The one of the tiers was essentially a balcony with a balustrade going all around it with 6 pillars. And so doing that, it seemed easy at first, but then when I went online to look for a balustrade mold, it was next to impossible to find one that would work with the size that were working with for the cake. And all the places that could custom make the balustrade, the turnaround time was so short that we weren't going to be able to get it to Ghana in time. And so I thought to myself, okay, let me call Red Oak up and see if she could carve out the balustrade for me. Now, once she's able to do the balustrade to the dimensions that I need her to do them to, then I would have to order food safe silicone and make a mold out of it so that I could have my balcony, my balustrade, that I could use for the cake. So literally, that's what we did. So we ordered this from Red Oak, who was such a rock star. She carved this out by hand. It took her a couple of days, and she brought it to the studio and she was like, I hope it works. And I was so excited. And then I had to order the silicone, a food safe, food grade, BPA free silicone, from the States. And then when that came in, I had never used food grade. I had never made my own mold before, but um, I was able to make the mold for the balcony tier, which was great. Then we had 3 chandeliers in the cake. Now, the first time I ordered the chandelier, I ordered a wired chandelier, and we needed a 9-volt battery. And wiring a cake, even though I've done it and I can do it, it's very cumbersome because this cake would have to be transported to Liberia by air. And there are so many restrictions in having components with batteries for air travel that it was just too complex for me to deal with. Plus, wiring a cake is no joke. And so then we had to order another type, which is more compact, which works via battery. So that's what we ended up using for the cake. And so all that said and done, our cake was finally coming together. We spent close to 3 weeks beating the cake because it had a lot of intricate beating. We made like sheets and sheets of edible lace, lustering the cake, beating the cake, the Swarovski crystals that we incorporated into the design, that the bride wanted, because it replicated the Swarovski crystals in her gown. So we finished the cake, and then we had the task of figuring out the logistics. We made several calls to the airline that gave us dimensions to use for the boxes that we're going to transport the cakes in. We crossed our T's and dotted our I's. But then we got to the airport and the airline said, actually, these boxes are too big. We can't let you fly with them. And this was the Thursday before the wedding on Saturday. One tier of the cake alone weighed 33.4 kilos, the cake alone. And so we had to constantly, I think the biggest challenge for this cake was the boxes. I feel like all the issues with the balcony and the stuff pale in comparison, because we got to the airport and we couldn't check the cake in because the boxes were too big. We came back to the studio. I had to buy another ticket to be able to make the next flight out of Ghana the following day to Liberia. We had to come back to the studio. I had to call the carpenters back who had worked through the night before to be able to complete the boxes that were useless at this point. And then now make a new set of boxes to be able to transport the cake the following morning, because the following morning our flight was at 10 and we had to get to the airport early because we wanted to be able to check in the stuff and make sure everything could go. custom boxes made by Inshura Nakers. She made these customized cake slice boxes for the cakes. So we transported all this to Liberia. 250 of these plus sugar flowers. We were 200 kilos in excess. We had to pay for 200 kilos excess baggage on our flights. At a point, the airline actually asked us to charter the flights because we were going to take the bulk of the weight that the flight could carry. The logistics of this whole operation was the biggest hurdle that we had to overcome. But we did all that, got to Liberia Friday afternoon, and got straight to work, hit the ground running. The first thing we did, I think, was we boxed the cakes. And then once we boxed the 250 cakes, I got to work on the balcony because I fabricated it in Ghana. I used pastillage, which is the strongest medium, as opposed to gum paste, which dries hard. But pastillage is rock hard, but then it's extremely brittle. So we bubble wrapped all the pastillage balustrades that we did, and then we put it in boxes, and it got to Liberia with none broken, which was such an amazing. I think just one broke, but even that, I did a spare one, so it was fine. Because we had been working on the cake for close to 3 weeks, the fondant and the lace and all the beading had time to properly set, and so it wasn't soft. Like, so the cake literally had cured itself to the point where it would take a sledgehammer to get rid of a lot of the detailing that we had done. God being so good, like, we assembled the cake and it was beautiful. I mean, I do a lot of beautiful cakes, and I genuinely love what I do. We had a lot of challenges, from the logistics to delays to so many things that I wouldn't go into, but through it all, God glorified Himself, and I think that is the take home from everything. That even though we face challenges, and I say this all the time, that whatever God ordains, He sustains. Like, God gave us the grace to make it through, because without God, I don't know how we would have done it. Like, the challenges were so big and so seemed so insurmountable, but by God's grace we made it through. When I stood back and I looked at the cake, I had chills, because I was like, the amount of, like, literally, if you took a microscope, like, or even a magnifying glass, you would see details that seemed to be like too minute to see, but then they made a difference in the larger scheme of things. We micro beaded 6 counts over lace all over the cake. We used hundreds of thousands of sugar pearls, hundreds of sugar blossoms. Like, it was everything. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank like all the people who made this cake possible. Like it takes a team. It's not, you can be the star player, but Messi is nothing without whichever team he's playing for. We wouldn't know Messi if he wasn't playing for a team. And so it takes a team. You can be the star, but you need a team of people to hold you up so that you can fulfill whatever. So my team in Accra, they killed it. My carpenters, like my everybody, Kofi, Mr. Bequeen, Auntie Rose, Sophia, Perfect, like everybody. Paul. If I start talking about Paul now, I don't know where I will finish. In fact, Christy, my friend Christy came through and coordinated my Accra wedding for me. Anthony, my driver Solomon, like literally everybody, my parents like were like my mother came that day to help. She took us to the airport, like everybody, my husband like was busy getting ready for exams, but he took care of the kids. Like it's like literally I couldn't have done this without my support system. Everybody who like supported us, who helped us, Red Oak, Inshira, like Aquainto, everybody, the whole team of people, the people at the Ghana airport, Africa World, you guys were so great. I mean, because like they really, really helped us. We wouldn't have been able to take this cake to Liberia without the great people at Africa World. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Auntie Vic. Like, I am forever in your debt for like how helpful you were to us when we felt like giving up, your encouragement. Like, thank you all so much to all the people who persevered with us, who saw the struggle, and to those who also just said a prayer for us and wished us well. God bless you all. This is only the beginning. There are greater and bigger things ahead for us. And so I hope you enjoy this episode of the Cakeism experience. So remember to mask up and stay safe.